outward-looking and sort of high-wage, high-skilled economy, the people who would be bringing in these skills just don't want to come here anymore. And, a lot of these things, if you look at the way Silicon Valley, and I know that much better, if you look at the way Silicon Valley started off with, you will find it's just almost completely run by sort of these high-skilled, very, very smart young people who started off there, and they start off these sort of shoots of these universities, be it, from Google to, pick any one of these top companies now. They all started off by immigrant students who were studying there because they were welcomed by the university. I mean,
big ideas. Big ideas. No, that's what we want, isn't it? Big ideas. And workable ones. Thanks very much indeed, Venki. Sarah was from Smile. Hello, Sarah.
Hi there. I was calling because I'm coming at this from a slightly different angle. And listening to your show, I realise obviously there's different levels of students, masters, all the higher level stuff. But at a basic entry level, business studies courses and things like that, I have experienced a number.
By basic, do you mean undergraduate? So 18, 19?
Entry level is probably a good way for me to say it, because I'm not really sure. Yes, but I would agree. Undergraduate. Coming from overseas, with student visas, which are not cheap from my experience, it's about 15,000, 17,000 that they're paying. Coming over here for a 1 or a 2-year student visa, and they attend for maybe a month or two, then they stop attending, and they'll do cash-in-hand jobs as well as their 20-hour work allowance. And then what will happen is, after a year or 2 years, whatever their visa time is, they'll overstay. They're with their husband, they'll end up having children. Once the child is 5, they...
You've seen this all the way through, have you?
Well, I've seen it
at different
stages. I've seen it at different stages with regards to people who know those people. But my point is, and they'll put a case on, and it will all become legal, and it will work out okay. So it's not. But I guess my concern with that is there's no check mechanism when they're coming in through a certain university to say they're studying. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, aren't we looking for these students who should be welcomed? I agree with you on that. To be educated, to finish their courses, and therefore gain skills and then integrate.
If they stay, yes, but the vast majority don't stay. And on the, I don't doubt what you've seen and experienced with your own eyes and ears and life, but the statistics from the Office for National Statistics tell us that the government's claims about the number of people overstaying, this is going back a couple of years, were exaggerated to the tune of 95,000. So out of the 100,000 students that were being described as overstaying, fewer than 5,000 actually did. So the government's claim was overstated to the tune of 95,000, or more in fact, out of 100,000. So we'll take those with a pinch of salt. I thank you, Sarah, for your call. We're going to return to the subject of Keir Starmer's speech, and particularly mental health of young people, in just a moment. It's 3 o'clock.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 3 o'clock, the Home Secretary has defended how she handled a speeding offence last summer, but Suella Braverman has not denied asking civil servants if they could help arrange a private speed awareness course. She insists there is nothing untoward about what happened. The Home Secretary has been responding to questions from Labour MPs about what she asked senior officials.
Let's be honest about what this is all about, Mr. Speaker. The Shadow Minister would rather distract, really, frankly, from the abject failure by the Labour Party to offer any serious proposals on crime or policing. They want to talk about this because it distracts. It distracts from the fact that they voted against tougher sentences for paedophiles and murderers.
The Prime Minister is facing calls to open an inquiry into whether she broke the ministerial code. Sir Keir Starmer claims the NHS in England will not survive another 5 years under the Tories. The Labour leader says his party would make the health service fit for the future. He insists not all of its problems can be solved by funding alone. Former Conservative Health Secretary Stephen Dorrell has told LBC he welcomes that.
I welcome the fact that the Labour leader is focusing on the real things that matter. It's something that was said by the former Chief Exec of Public Health England, that if you want to make people healthy, start by giving them a job, a friend and a home.
The government insists it's already bringing down waiting lists. Facebook's parent company has been fined £1 billion for breaking GDPR rules. The record fine was passed down in Ireland following a 3-year investigation into Meta. The company has also been ordered to stop transferring user data from Europe to its US servers. It's understood police investigating the disappearance of Madeleine McCann are to carry out new searches of a reservoir in Portugal. They'll start work tomorrow near a dam close to where the toddler went missing in the Algarve 16 years ago. And Real Madrid have reported a hate crime after one of their players was racially abused. Vinicius was targeted by Valencia supporters during a match between the two sides at the Mestalla yesterday. In the city, a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading up 16 points at 77.73. The pound buys $1.24 and €1.15. LBC weather, mostly dry and fine this afternoon. Cloudier skies with a few showers in northern England. Feeling warm in the sunshine, a high of 22 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Sheila Fogarty.
Hello, good afternoon. If you are just joining me here at LBC, in the first hour of the programme we talked about the sort of generality of Sir Keir Starmer's speech on health policy today, on what Labour will do with not just the health service but the health of the nation more generally if he were to come to power. I want to focus this hour on what he has said, and more broadly than that, what you say we need when it comes to mental health treatment. He said Labour intends to revolutionise mental health treatment in Britain.
Killer 3, suicide. Last year, I went to an event organised by the band New Order, and they asked me, for obvious reasons given their history, did I know anyone that's died in that way? I have to admit it took me aback. I've never been asked that, certainly not in public before. But you know, I didn't have to think that long. I do. More than one, in fact. 3 friends. And if I asked everyone in this room the same question, I guess you wouldn't have to think about it for long either. Suicide is the biggest killer of young lives in this country. The biggest killer. That statistic should haunt us. And the rate is going up. Our mission must be and will be to get it down.
Keir Starmer earlier on today, he promised 8,500 new mental health professionals, specialist access in every school, and guaranteed treatment inside 4 weeks for anyone who needs it. And that isn't the flavour, is it, of what we have at the moment. In certainly the vast majority of cases when I speak to you, your experience has been one of waiting or being misunderstood or being given the wrong kind of care in the long run. I'm joined by Louise Tickle, a journalist for Tortoise Media, who's written a piece for The Observer titled about a young girl who will be called Becky. It's not her real name. Becky, who's just 12, tried to kill herself. The care she received was 8 weeks in solitary. And we'll hear from Stevie Goulding in a moment, Senior Manager for the Parents and Carer Service at Young Minds. Louise, first of all, good afternoon to you.
Hello there.
I read your piece over the weekend in Increasing Disbelief, really. Talk us through what you found.
Yes, I became aware that amongst all the children who have mental health problems, there is a cohort of children who are in perhaps the most urgent, the deepest distress, and who need, when they hit absolutely rock bottom, they often need secure accommodation, which means that they need to be kept away from perhaps friends or people who would influence them badly. They need to be sometimes locked inside a house, possibly even in their bedroom, with therapeutic care. And there are special placements in the country that provide this with the kind of expert, well-trained care that you would need in crisis for a child. But I also discovered, as part of my investigation for Tortoise Media, that there were only 128 of these placements in England and Wales, and that there can be scores of children in absolute crisis waiting for those placements, and the government didn't know how long they were waiting, and how many ended up in unregulated accommodation, so without any independent oversight of the skills or training or care they received.
Which brings us to Becky's story.
Yes, I heard about Becky in January. Becky was a 12-year-old girl. She's just turned 13, and I heard about her when she had been removed from her home because she was a danger to herself and to others. She'd been taken into care, and placement after placement had fallen through because she would attack staff, she would run away, she would abscond, she would put herself in very dangerous situations. And from being ferried around from pillar to post, at one point Staffordshire Council saw fit to put her in a travel lodge, at which point she trashed it. She ran away. She was being taken to another placement along the motorway. She pulled on the handbrake, escaped from the car, ran along the motorway, climbed up a building and tried to jump off, at which point she ended up in a hospital and in what's known as a seclusion room, which is a completely bare room with, I actually saw a sort of small video the hospital did for me of this room. It had a platform with a mattress on it, a plastic mattress. It had some moulded toilets and a moulded toilet and a moulded sink. And, for most of each day, her only contact with staff and even with her mum was through a hatch in the door, like a big letterbox, and that was how she got her food. And her mum told me about a visit she'd had once where she was just able to put her hand through the hatch, and Becky just put her head in her mum's hand and she could just kind of ruffle her hair through the hatch. It was just devastating, and that was 2 days short of 8 weeks she was in that room.
And what reason was given for that kind of environment being deemed to be a solution?
Well, when a child is in that level of distress, the professionals have a really serious problem if they don't have the right placement with the right staff to put them in, because you are simply trying to contain a child and keep them alive. It didn't work. She repeatedly self-harmed. She tried to kill herself several times, in fact on one occasion several times in one day in that placement. And there was court hearing after court hearing that I would attend, all remotely over Microsoft Teams. And you could see the local authority and the Health Trust kind of, as one barrister put it, sort of staring each other down, seeing who would blink first. And I'm only able to report on this hearing, which was held in private, because the High Court judge in charge of it was so concerned that she gave me permission to report. And there are many High Court judges who have published judgments. Becky's is not a unique case. It's not unusual, saying exactly the same thing.
And in the same piece that you write, you write that in January of this year, the most senior family judge in England and Wales, Sir Andrew McFarlane, ordered the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, to come to his court to account for the failure to provide more than those 128 placements that you described. And he said, he accused her of, as you write, I'm quoting you now, of complacency, I'm quoting him, of complacency bordering on cynicism. I mean, that's quite an accusation towards ministers.
And he's the most senior family judge in the country. He called the Secretary of State to his court. She asked permission not to come. She sent a barrister in her place, and the barrister's position on her behalf was simply to say that, this terrible situation was not her responsibility, and it would be a waste of public money even for her to engage with the court in looking at this mismatch between, the increasing demand for secure welfare placements and how many there are in the country for kids who need them.
And this child obviously has a loving mother.
She does.
Did she have a diagnosis?
Well, this is the difficult thing, because getting a mental health diagnosis for a suicidal child, well, I think probably for anyone, it's very time-specific and time-sensitive. So you can be highly suicidal and make attempts on your life, but if when the mental health team come to assess you, you're not in that state, the phrase that kept being used in the court hearings was that her mental disorder was not of the nature or degree to warrant her being sectioned under the Mental Health Act. And that meant that for almost all the time that I've been following her case, she wasn't eligible for a paediatric mental health bed. And that meant, well, where else was Becky going to go? Because the local authority is desperately scouring the country for one of these placements, and there is nowhere.
So do you might not be able to answer this, but in the way that, in my experience of adult social care for elderly people, both from personal experience and from talking to many hundreds of people on this programme, it's become clear that local authority policy on providing, or paying for social care is letting you know what you can't have rather than what you can have. Is your understanding of Becky's case, and maybe others like it, that the idea that her condition is not of the nature or degree to warrant sectioning, that is the preferable conclusion so that a degree of care is required?
It doesn't come down to money in these cases when they're in extremis, because, again, through Freedom of Information requests, we discovered that £150,000 had been paid just on Becky's placement in the last few months. And when children are in this state, money is just spent like water. The problem seems to me to come further upstream, where the kinds of conditions, mental health problems, difficulties socially that children have are just not addressed with the right kind of tailored expert support they need early. And so what happens is they become increasingly unable to deal with the world that they're in, and they act out from a place of almost unfathomable distress.
I mean, it's what we would imagine in a Victorian sort of horror scenario, isn't it, of mental health care?
I have a 12-year-old boy, and the idea of him in that room really
broke your heart. Yeah, I'm sure. And where is she now, do you know?
So she's in another hospital. She's in a seclusion area, which is still separate from everybody else, all other children. She's waiting for another move. Her mum desperately wants her to come home. The judge has ordered the local authority on 2 occasions that I've been attending at to create a really detailed plan to allow her to come home, knowing that by now money literally is no object, and they simply haven't done it.
Thank you for the article and for sharing elements of it with us today, Louise. Louise Tickle, journalist for Tortoise Media. I'll tweet that article so you can read it if you wish. Stevie Goulding, I was listening to that, Senior Manager for the Parents and Carers Service at Young Minds. Good afternoon to you, Stevie.
Hello there.
Keir Starmer promising a revolution in mental health care, focusing on young people for this hour, which is what we're doing. What would a revolution look like?
So what we know from the young people and obviously the parents and carers that contact our services is that more young people than ever before are struggling with their mental health, and all too often we're hearing about how difficult it is to access the support they need when they need it, and we feel that's completely unacceptable. If young people are reaching out and wanting support, we want to make sure that they're not facing those challenges alone and they receive the care that they deserve. So we're really calling on the government to make it easier for young people to access help. And one of the things that we're really campaigning for is early support hubs in each local community, so that young people have a place to talk and open up without needing an appointment or referral.
And on that, do you mean outside of school as well as obviously you would want some mental health support in school, but do you mean a place that ostensibly might be like a cafe or something, but there is genuine professional help there if needed?
Absolutely, because what we hear, time and time again, is how lengthy waiting lists can be to access support, as well as the thresholds that young people need to meet to be able to access that help as well. And that's why we also are really strongly campaigning for the government to make it quicker to get support from mental health services as well.
So the prescription, as he describes it, and he's talking generally, but I'm sure it would apply here, but he does include specialist access in every school. What does that currently look like? Mental health support by mental health specialists, not just good teachers, but by mental health specialists in schools.
Absolutely. So again, from the different experiences we take from parents and carers, it can be quite variable across the country in what type of school that child is in, and I guess the local authority. But we hear about, maybe school nurses to do sort of drop-ins and check-ins. There's, initiatives across the country around sort of having school counsellors who might visit, a particular school and be stationed there, or around sort of several schools. Often, schools have pastoral care leads, but sometimes that can be quite challenging to navigate because it can be either separate roles or twinned with other roles in the school. So that pastoral lead may also be the special educational needs coordinator or the head of year. So again, it's really difficult on a national level to say absolutely what that looks like in every school, and that's why we always encourage parents and carers to really reach out and explore what the options are and let the school let them know about that. And often lots of schools have sort of wellbeing policies published on their website to gauge a little bit more of an idea about what support is available.
And obviously Becky's story, as told there by Louise, is an appalling extreme, not least the distress she is in, but then the kind of care that she got and the care she didn't get. Obviously mental distress comes in lots of different ways and different forms. Is that something we recognise enough, do you think? Obviously individual families will, when they're going through it, they'll be gauging, what is this? Is this an eating disorder? Is it bipolar? What is it? Is it just being teenage? What is it? Everybody will go through those things. Do we talk enough about that range? I guess to help families recognise what's going on in young people, to help them recognise what's going on themselves.
Absolutely, and I think it can be so difficult to know when to be worried about the child's mental health, as you just touched on there. Young people go through so many transitions in life. You've got the teenage and adolescent years, which we hear often on the helpline, can be really turbulent, and sometimes it can be really difficult to disentangle, I guess, what's maybe typical teenage reaction, behaviours that are coming through, and what's maybe more of a mental health concern. And I think the way that young people express their distress and their difficulties, or how they can communicate, can be so difficult. So again, it's really tough to sometimes identify that. And again, that's why, sort of having these conversations and, really getting this out in the open and empowering, I guess, parents and carers and maybe trusted adults around young people to have that conversation is so important as a first step, because again, unless you're having that conversation and talking about it, it's really hard to sometimes get to the crux of it. So we would always say, parents and carers particularly, trusting your instincts, and reflecting at what you're worried about and opening that dialogue is hugely important.
And that your child. you know your
Absolutely.
child.
Better than anybody. So again, trusting those instincts, and looking out for maybe those more sustained changes in behaviours that are maybe over a longer period of time, and things that are just out of character for your child. That might look like they're withdrawing, they're not very communicative, they might be quite irritable. It can come in all sorts of ways, and we've got lots of information on our website for spotting those signs and things to be aware of.
Oh, that's good to know. And it's just say the name of the website so people can use it if they want to.
And it's youngminds.org.uk, and we've got a parents and carers section on there.
Lovely, nice and easy. youngminds.org.uk. Thank you very much, Stevie. Good to talk to you. Stevie Goulding, Senior Manager for the Parents and Carers Service at Young Minds. Your call's in a moment. It's 3:20.
This is LBC.
In a crisis, service matters. Which surveyed more than 10,000 energy customers and independently assessed the performance of every major supplier. Only one measured up. Octopus Energy is the only Which recommended energy supplier. Octopus Energy, recommended by Which 6 years running.
The Ford Ranger, a vehicle for all terrains and every passion. It's a workmate, a playmate, and to its drivers, a soulmate. So how do you improve the Ford Ranger? You go all in. The all-new Ford Ranger, the UK's best-selling pickup. Now available with rear bumper steps, tailgate workbench, and enlarged load box that can fit a Euro pallet. Go break it in. Search all-new Ford Ranger. Ford Pro, driving productivity. According to SMMT data, features may be optional extras with additional cost.
It was just another day, a familiar drive through familiar country. But then, just around the corner, came the unexpected. He'd let his speed creep a little too high as he approached a bend, and he was no longer driving at the right speed for the road. The scary thing is, he didn't even realize driving even a little too fast for the situation is a major cause of collisions, especially on country roads where you don't know what's around the corner. Think, don't let your speed creep.
Let your imagination run wild at Disney's The Lion King. Exploding with glory in the heart of London's West End. Discover more at thelionking.co.uk.
In a crisis, service matters. Octopus Energy is the only Which recommended energy supplier. Octopus Energy, recommended by Which 6 years running.
Sheila Fogarty on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Given the commitment today from Sir Keir Starmer in that speech about healthcare, his commitment to make mental health treatment a lot better than it is now, he says we intend to revolutionise mental health treatment. He also focused on the degree to which the numbers of people taking their own lives in this country. The biggest killer of young people in this country is them taking their own lives. If any of these issues are of concern to you or triggering difficult feelings and thoughts for you, the Samaritans number, I will give it out a number of times. The Samaritans number is very easy to remember, 116 123. 116 123. Someone is always there, free to talk to you. 116 123. Stephanie has called from Woking with her own story. Hello, Stephanie.
Hi, Sheila. Thank you so much for taking my call. I just wanted to share my story, really. My son was 21. He was at university and had severe mental health difficulties since September last year. The universities don't actually have a duty of care towards their students, unlike schools. And he was very, very poorly. He took an overdose in December. He went to the hospital. He saw a doctor there and was discharged same night back to his room on his own, literally with just a leaflet. He did contact. Yeah, he did have contact with the Samaritans several times, actually. And then he had after that, he had about 23 either telephone calls or he saw a mental health nurse.
By telephone calls, do you mean a kind of therapeutic phone calls?
Mainly with his GP, actually. And there was one occasion where he was given, he contacted the community mental health service. He was given an emergency appointment. I went with him. He went and spoke to the nurse. And I said to him, I want to go in and speak to her after. And I did. And I said to her at the time, you know, how do I know that my son is safe? And she said to me, in my opinion, he was not at risk. So I had to go home.
Of taking his life?
Yes. And so I had to go home, leaving him in Portsmouth. Sorry, I shouldn't have said where he was, but he wouldn't come home with me. And we had no, because of the confidentiality, because of the age, we had no idea. And then in January this year, he took an overdose and he died. He committed suicide and died in January. And we've subsequently had an investigation from the trust, and it said that on that particular occasion when he saw this mental health nurse, that he was going to commit suicide.
No.
Yes.
You saw the notes to prove that?
Yes. It's all written. We've read, it's all in the note.
And can I ask you, you talked about he'd had problems leading up to this, obviously, but what was the nature